The Bears had a very interesting draft this year. They have a young quarterback in Justin Fields, and it was very clear he has a ton of talent, and if he can tap into all of it, he can be very, very special. But it was also clear that he was being held back. Rookie mistakes he made looking much worse with his offensive line not holding up, not having a dependable run game to fall back on, which leads to not having favorable matchups in the passing game, and not having that true elite top 10 receiver or tight end, and a coach not calling the plays to help cover up or make up for any of their flaws or shortcomings as a team. So with this young quarterback, I think everyone was expecting a full draft of players geared to specifically help Justin Fields have more success. But after their first two picks went to the secondary, they finally picked a receiver in the third round in Velus Jones Jr., an absolute speedster out of Tennessee. But how much does this actually help Justin Fields? They no longer have Allen Robinson, but they did bring in Byron Pringle and ESB. The offensive line still has as many question marks as answers, but let's talk about Velus Jones, because I think this is a small part of a much larger conversation, and we can break down his game to see exactly what the Bears are getting in him, because he is the new guy that we haven't seen any NFL action from yet. And then we'll discuss a brief outlook on the new pieces the Bears brought in and the impact they will make. There's obviously a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Velus Jones finished his career at Tennessee, but this was only the last 2 of his 6 collegiate seasons. With a redshirt year and an extra year due to COVID, it was clear what asset he brought to his college team and what it's going to be in Chicago: speed. He was one of the fastest players in the entire combine, and he used his speed to take the top off the defense. He was consistently able to put pressure on corners and safeties, making sure they always knew where he was at on the field, and if they made one mistake, they knew it was costing them 6. But on the other side of things, he's very elusive. So many times at Tennessee, the quarterback could just flip it out to him on a quick screen, bubble screen, tunnel screens, and let him just work in space. He was so great at making the first guy miss, and he could use his initial burst to squeeze through tight holes and get the most out of his blocks. And since he was so great in the open field, every single year in college he was the return specialist for kicks and punts for both USC and the Volunteers. And every single year he at least took one to the house. And I would expect him to come into Chicago and have that job on lock from day one. He shows at times that he can pluck the ball out of the air, showing very nice hands, and he can be shifty with his routes while getting vertical. And I love how hard he plays. Even though he has a smaller frame, he puts in a lot of effort in the run blocking game. Now, there are some clear weaknesses, or let's say some limitations to his game that didn't make him a top receiver prospect. He has a very, and I mean very, limited route tree as of right now. We saw how good he is at getting deep with vertical routes and also getting yards off screens and maybe throwing a slant in here and there, but nothing else is really up to NFL standard as of right now. But let's slow down and take a look at a few plays to show you what I mean. So Velus Jones absolutely has NFL speed, but we're going to start to see when you don't have NFL ready route running where that can really become a problem. Like this play here in Tennessee, this receiver at the top is going to kind of clear out. And what they really want on this play is Velus Jones is going to, with the safety over top of him, work about 10 yards up the field, come across the middle, and fit it in between these 2 linebackers and before the safety can come up to help. A very simple concept, and it works very well when you have a lot of speed and the safety is going to be cautious and always worried about you going over the top. In place, and this is when we talk about other guys like Devontae Adams. When I say he breaks it off at 90 degrees, this is where it matters. Right here, when he's at the 40-yard line, he's going to start to make his way across the field. And because of your speed, you have all this room from the safety. So what you're going to want to do is he's going to try and break it off about 10, 11 yards deep and get these linebackers going to be drifting off. And then he can even settle down if he needs to in between these linebackers that are in zone coverage, because the safety has so much ground to cover if he can break it off right here. But we're going to watch as he starts to make his turn. It's very rounded. He starts it at the 40-yard line, and by the time Hendon Hooker can get it to him, he actually catches the ball 7 yards up the field. And this is an over route. This is not supposed to be a post or anything. This is just him drifting up the field, and it makes it really hard for timing, and he actually runs himself right into the safety, being able to possibly make a play on this ball. Luckily, he's able to make the contested catch and get up the field, but as we start to see, he runs himself into being a contested catch. And the best receivers in the NFL not can only win, but they can win quickly. They can get right onto the corner's toes, or even especially if it's a linebacker like he has in this situation, get right on his toes, make a move, quick move, and be off to the races. But what he does is he uses so many false steps that Hendon Hooker has a hard time even getting the ball to them. He's going to pump fake. So again, it works, but he's going to like rock step. This is taking a bunch of time, kind of squaring him up. The linebacker hasn't even moved at all. They're already getting into his drop. He's going to be trying to make an anticipation throw, and he's just kind of jogging up, trying to make a move, going inside, outside, inside. And he's just so much faster than this linebacker. But right now, Hendon Hooker's pump faking because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to be there in time. He pumps fake, is able to get open. But again, this just isn't NFL ready stuff. You can't be this slow getting into your route, and you can't have this many false steps if you want to be elite receiver at the NFL level. So trying to break down this Velus Jones pick, I'm going to give a really weird example here and actually relate the Bears situation to fashion. In fashion, you have your staple pieces and you have your statement pieces. Your staples are blue jeans and a white shirt, or black jeans and white shoes, something basic. Your offensive line, your tight end, and your wide receiver one are your staples. And a statement piece would be a colorful puffer jacket just to add some flair to the basic staples. Velus Jones, Byron Pringle, and the Tyquan Thornton for the Patriots of the world are the statement pieces. Which, with these, you can put together a really nice outfit when they're with some of the staple pieces. But if you only have statement pieces, it's not gonna look too great. But having the statement or one of these guys on your team is more of a luxury than anything. I think Velus Jones can be so explosive, but I think the Bears could have given Justin Fields a staple to have. Your offensive line, tight end, wide receiver ones. The Bears with this third pick could have had tight end Jelani Woods or Greg Dulcich. There was still at tackle Abraham Lucas, Bernard Raymond to help out the offensive line. To me, this pick was just a little confusing. Devin Duvernay for the Ravens works out because they have a good offensive line, a huge threat of a rushing attack, and they have Mark Andrews. So when Duvernay can just use his straight line speed, he becomes super valuable to their offense. I think Velus Jones can be a huge asset for any teams he's on, but with his limited route tree, he won't be able to go for deep balls as often if the offensive line can't give Fields enough time. And Fields, unlike Tua last year, who both dealt with their subpar offensive lines very differently, Tua threw it underneath and very quickly. He relied heavily on the screen game, quick slants, quick outs, while Justin Fields had the highest air yards per completion. So he really likes to hold on to it and push the ball down the field. So I think Velus and Pringle, with all the speed across the board, is going to play very well into Justin's strengths once they get more staples, which I think is the main point of what I took from this after I looked into the moves that the Bears made to help their young quarterback. I think they were about 2 years ahead of themselves, and I don't think they've optimally made the most of their offseason to help propel Fields take the next step. But nonetheless, with this kind of speed, there's always going to have a puncher's chance. I just think it's always going to be better to get a good O-line and a running threat, because with the Bears, teams will more than likely be able to just sit in too high, keep things in front of them, stop the run with lighter boxes, get pressure with their front four, and wait for the young quarterback to make a mistake. So do I hate this pick from the Bears, or do I love it? Well, I really like Velus. I like Pringle as players, but when we look at what the Bears are really needing, it makes really good players turn into bad ideas philosophically with what you're trying to do as a rebuilding team. They put the bow on the present before they even put the wrapping paper on. But that's just what I think. Let me know what you guys think. I don't want to sound too overly critical about this pick or what Velus Jones has to offer, because he is a huge asset to the team, but more specifically for the Bears, I'm looking out for the concern of Justin Fields, and that was kind of the main focus of this video. And speaking of that, if you liked today's video, go ahead and leave a like, comment down below what you think, and make sure to subscribe if you enjoy daily sports content. Thank you guys so much for checking out the channel, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace!